So I want to invite the next panel. This will be led by Steve Haley. We're talking about how helping a scheme to get started with Mojaloop. This will be our final session for the day. Will be led by Steve Haley. We also have Drew Johnson, Nyi Aye, and Kadidia Niangado. Steve, I will let you take it away and you can introduce the rest of the panelists.
Awesome. Thanks, Simeon, and great to see everyone again. We're going to talk today about how we can get started with projects and how Mojaloop can help with that, and what are some of the obstacles that you can face. Hopefully, between ourselves, we'll actually learn some more obstacles, as a few of us are farther along in our projects than others. I do want to, before we get started, though, let me go ahead and let everyone introduce themselves and what they do, what they're interested in. So, Kadidia, if we can start with you, if you don't mind, from Mowali.
Yeah, sure. Good afternoon or good afternoon, I think, everywhere in the world right now. So I'm Kadidia, product owner for Mowali. And I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. All right, Nyi.
Thank you, Steve. Hi, everyone. My name is Nyi Aye. I'm CEO of Thitsaworks, and Thitsaworks, as you probably know, has been designated as the hub operator in Myanmar as part of the Myanmar Microfinance Digitalization project, MMD project, partner with ModusBox in implementing Mojaloop for the platform. The scheme name has been chosen as WinePay, so you will start to hear the name WinePay more and more instead of MMD going forward. I'm very happy to be here and sharing the experience that we have and things that are working and things that we wish will improve very soon. We are here to share, all the lessons learned and every pain and the good things that are happening. Thank you, Steve.
All right, Drew. Thanks, Nyi.
Yes, hi everyone. This is Drew Johnson from ModusBox. And this is a good extension of what I do normally, because I'm usually on a call with Nyi at least like 2 hours a day working on the Myanmar project. So it's nice to be with Nyi and the other panelists to talk about, how do we do better at rolling out these solutions. Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Drew. And just in case anyone was curious, why do we have 3 people who are working on the Myanmar project here? I think what I'm hoping to get from is Drew was really working. If, like Nyi said, we're super excited about the new name, the scheme, WinePay, and so I think Drew was looking to represent MMD, the project that we've kicked off a year and a half ago, and Nyi, the WinePay, the scheme, which is actually taking form in the past couple of months, because I think they're and that's part of the story that we'll kind of tell through this. So the first thing that I kind of want to talk through is when we look at, I don't know about all of you, but when you look at payment networks, it feels like it's one chicken and egg situation after another. And every time somebody says, I need to make a decision, you say, well, I don't know about this until this, and there's not this until this. The number of dependencies on an infinite number of things, it seems like it's never ending. And the number of people who said, no, you started at the wrong place, you sort of started here. I'm like, well, I had to start somewhere. And so I'd love to hear your opinions about getting started. What were some of those most difficult chicken and egg situations that you faced that you were like, oh, this one was tough to get past? Kadidia, I see you nodding. Do you mind kicking this off?
You're absolutely right. It's a chicken and egg situation, and there's no formula or winning recipe. You just have to dive into it. And you have situations where you have to build a solid platform before you are attractive to participants. And to be able to do that, you need participants to be connected for the platform to be attractive. So you cannot just go with the flow, and there's no one recipe, but and as well as to the need to convince or to get the approval from the regulatory bodies. You need something that's mature, relatively mature, and relatively stable. And how do you do that when? How do you achieve that when you don't have the approval, or when you don't have the trust of the participants? So, yeah, you're absolutely right.
Those are the two big ones, I think. Drew, go ahead.
Yeah, just to jump in on like the recipe analogy, and I think one way you can find out if you're like cooking the wrong thing is that the participants stop engaging. And this happened actually in the Myanmar project a little bit, where we thought the rules were like a really important thing, or some of the rules were really important to have early on, and so we were pushing kind of the participants, let's work on the rules, let's come together, let's do this, and you just start them pull back and not engaging, or not being able to give the right feedback or the right answers or make the right decision. And so then you realize that, okay, we're doing this a little bit out of order. Let's pull that back. Let's work on something else. Another way to think about it is, listening and getting feedback from the participants about what they want. And when they say they won't go further on a certain thing, like, hey, we're not going to go forward until we have pricing. We really need pricing. And so, yeah, okay. And we, keep moving forward slowly on other things, onboarding, other rules, decisions. And then it gets to a point where they say, no, we actually need this. So being, I think, responsive to those chicken and eggs and not having it all laid out, and then kind of adjusting as you go, I think is something that, I don't know if it worked well for us, but it's something that we had to do.
Thanks, Drew. That was good. Nyi?
Yeah, those are really good examples. Because of the use case that we are using in Myanmar, right, where we are inviting MFIs to be one of the first use cases, with the loan repayments, right, being the actual first use case to go through the wine pay scheme. We have MFIs on one side, and then we have the mobile wallets on the other side. And it's an interesting thing to see where we have to convince the wallets that they are enough interested MFIs, right, to join the platform. And at the same time, we also have to convince the MFIs that, yes, they are wallets who are interested to be part of this platform. So at one point, we also have to take a look at the ecosystem and see, right, which site we focus on first, right? Because we definitely want both of them, but as you all know, as with any marketplace, you need to start somewhere, right? Building a marketplace where you have both sides, right, equally coming on board is not possible, right? So we do have right now a sort of a larger number of MFIs who have signed the letter of intent and are interested, and that in itself is a very interesting, a business proposition for the other wallets to also, consider joining. If they have a bilateral relationship with the MFIs, they may not see the need to be a part of our interoperable, platform, right? So we also need to create, the stories for them, right, and for their management, to take up, something like this.
Nyi, you said something, I mean, you actually said a bunch of things I want to unpack and hear other people's thoughts on. You talked about that letter of intent, and I think you jumped right into kind of, maybe it's become such a normal part of our daily life that we forgot about it, but that's actually, I think, a pretty innovative solution that we had to this problem of, like what Kadidia said, of nobody wants to join a platform until it's robust. A lot of times they don't even want to join it until you can prove that there's transactions. Like, I'll join you when I'll join it when I know that it's a big enough network, not just a solid network, but like a big network where there's lots of transactions happening. But somebody has to be first. And remember, somebody has so that question of getting participants, I'd like to talk through getting those first participants. And how do we sell them? If we can't sell them on, hey, we've got this network that has 1 billion transactions a day, how do we sell them on a vision that this is going to be something that could be interesting for them? And I think, Nyi, do you want to actually, Drew, I want to let you talk about, because the letter of intent was your innovation early on. How did we use that letter of intent and that staged process to get participants engaged?
Yeah, I totally agree. It's obviously starting with champions that believe in this. It helps if those champions have some clout within the country, so they can inspire others. But the letter of intent was something that we did to try to pull in the next kind of tranche of interested financial institutions. And it wasn't a legal document that signed anyone up for paying anything or even doing anything. It was just a simple letter that said, hey, this is the vision of the platform, and I believe in that vision, so I'm going to sign this. And that not only helped communicate what we're trying to do, but also set us a way of doing things, and that we wanted to have a big tent of people, of institutions, of all those classes that Nyi mentioned, mobile money banks, microfinance, and just bring everyone together and say, this is going to be an open process. This is going to be a transparent process. And by signing the letter of intent, you get to be part of that. And it's really easy to do that. So that was the whole idea behind that. I think what we did from there, just to go a little bit further along in the project, is that group of MFIs became what we call the scheme advisory on MMD. So they're providing, or that group of DFSPs, not just MFIs, providing input into decision making. And then we had the group that of DFSPs that committed more in terms of onboarding, in terms of investing more resources. We had those DFSPs have additional responsibility, additional decision making. So that governance structure is not something that we had planned. It kind of emerged as we went, and I think it pulled a lot of people into the project, having those champions and having that open process.
Yeah, I think that it definitely helped us to show. You hear a lot of excitement, but being able to actually have a tangible thing that's not just, okay, there's buzz. We have a tangible thing. Even if it's a document that has no legal binding, it's a thing. Kadidia, do you have any thoughts on that, of how you guys have overcome that challenge of getting participants?
I don't think it was that challenging for us, because we have strong stakeholders behind it. And they accepted to take the bet. They committed to it, and so the vision part of the level 1 principal objectives. I don't know how much that played a part. I think it was more of a functional need, and just to make things more efficient, because those telcos have. How do you call it? They have affiliates in many countries, and at the end of the day, it just makes more sense to have an entity take care of that interoperability aspect of it, and for cost efficiency, for matters of cost efficiency, and it's just more. I don't know how to put it. Yes, we have those financial inclusion principles, objectives, but also we have that very functional requirement and need that is so obvious, and that they committed to, because they already know that in the mobile money world right now, interoperability is kind of like a thing now in any case, because they cannot go. They have to work with it, especially for international remittance. So it was just a natural process, I think. It's lengthy sometimes, the integration processes, but I mean, yeah, everyone bear with it, and then we make it happen.
I want to dig more into integration process point, but yeah. Before that, I think you made that's an important point. And it's great that we have these level 1 principles that guide some of our hubs. But in the end, participants, whether they are opcos that have some relationship to the larger stakeholders that you're dealing with, or whether they're small microfinance institutions or independent wallets, they have to have a commercial reason to invest the time and money to want to join this hub, and they have to have. And I think what Nyi pointed out for starting with the microfinance institutions and connecting, the big use case was, can we connect MFIs and wallets to draw them in? And Kadidia, you guys started with inbound cross-border remittances, correct?
Yes, we did.
And so was that, do you think that was the kind of way of making it easier to communicate that vision to the OPCO participants, to say, like, there's no easier way for you to do this other than through us. You can do it all these bilaterals, but or we can handle it for you. You felt like that vision. Good.
It did, definitely, yeah. For international remittance, yes, because they have to rely on the hub anyways. So it's better to just do something stable, powered by an entity that everyone adheres to. In terms of security standards, in terms of rules, like Drew was just mentioning, a set of rules, business rules and stuff. So, yeah, that played a huge part. Yeah,
that's an interesting point to say. Like, to pick a use case, well, you already have to partner with somebody anyway to add that use case. You may as well partner with me. I think it was very similar to the idea in Myanmar of like interoperability, but interoperability in a use case that is so clearly a value added, a use case that we already want, and we have to partner with somebody else anyway. It's not something we can do internally. It's a different story than convincing people of your P2P is never going to rule the world, and so you may as well believe in interoperability. It's maybe a little bit easier if you're starting with a use case that's not quite as contentious. I think that's interesting that both of these hubs did not start with domestic P2P, even though that's where everybody always focuses on with thinking about interoperability.
It's already part of their strategies, definitely. It's deeply part of their strategies. It's been part of their strategies lately.
Talking about the inbound international remittance.
Interoperability.
Okay, interoperability. Okay.
Yeah.
But let's get back to the question. So if you're a business, so the question you mentioned of the difficulties of onboarding, and Kadidia, I want to start with you because you started us on that thread and integration. Because in the end, if you're going to convince somebody to join something, the cost of doing something has to be lower than the revenue that you're going to earn off of it and the benefit that you're going to get from it. And so in the end, if the cost of joining is incredibly high, it's a little bit more difficult to sell that vision. How have you, can you talk about your struggles of that integration process? Integration and onboarding process.
Yeah, it's not always seamless, but it takes maturity as well. You know, with each integration, it gets easier. But then when we talk about like making big changes, that can be that's not always easy for us to have our participants on board with like make changes to their system and stuff. So that's why the fact that we get a little bit of visibility on what's coming up so that we can prepare and plan for it, and maybe kind of like, well, at the same time, because we work closely with partners that are involved with the community, involved and that are familiar with the code base, that make it a safe bet to kind of build things on our own and be sure that somehow when the platform comes to it, that it will be more seamless kind of. But yeah, we have to, I mean, there's no way around it. You know, you have to go by those specs because Mojaloop has some specs that you have to strictly implement. But once you do it, it's just one connections. But once you do it, as long as there's no big major changes, then you okay. But we cannot just come up with like major changes that are gonna require that they change everything and they start from scratch again. That would be very FSPs will be reluctant to do that. But again, because we work closely with partners that are also involved with Mojaloop, so we can ensure that it's safer that way. Because we know that whatever is going to be built will be built in that spirit and with those specs, those standards, etc.
Sorry, I had to laugh when you said as long as nothing major changes, and at the same time, sometimes some of us are saying like this major thing has to change, but there is a risk of that, like you said, of what happens downstream. I want to pose the same question to Drew and Nyi, and I want to do it in order because they experienced something different than you did, Kadidia, because. And then each other did. Drew was very much working on this when it was working on the open source SDK, and then Nyi has primarily been working on it since Payment Manager has become open source, which has been two different experiences. Drew, can you start with some of the experiences you had with the difficulties of onboarding and convincing people to invest in it?
Sure. I mean, let me first out myself as a non-technical person. So I'm approaching this from the business side, and also say that I understand from talking with others that we were benefiting immensely from the previous work that had been done of onboarding using the native Mojaloop APIs. When we started the proof of concept in Myanmar, Steve, as you mentioned, we were able to use the SDK, and I think it was quite a big step forward, as I said, from what I understand of what was before. But that doesn't mean it wasn't a challenge. And the participants that participated in the POC were like sometimes shocked, like, "Hey, you're asking me that I have to host this thing on my own infrastructure. I have to spin up a server to host this. It requires these specs. Wow, this is a lot. Can you host this on behalf of us for the POC?" Those are the types of reactions that we were getting. So I think onboarding was a huge challenge. I mean, that was, I would say, like more than 50% of the time of the POC was spent on doing the onboarding work. Of course, for some it's easier because they're committed. Other ones it's really difficult. But we didn't have a lot of documentation about we had to create a lot of documentation on how the onboarding would work for this specific use case, which took a lot of time. We had to invent some processes, like how do you go through the onboarding journey. I think it remained like probably the biggest hurdle for us was the technical, and because we were working with low capacity financial institutions, that definitely exacerbated the issues. I guess the other thing, just to add on here, Steve, since I have the mic, the floor for a second, is also just having to set up new infrastructure to do a POC was also kind of a barrier, right? Like the FSPs were like, "Okay, we're ready to do this. Tell us where to connect." It's like, "Okay, well, let us go away for a month and for a couple of weeks and set everything up, get it tested, get it configured." I think having some infrastructure to play with to do POCs for the financial institutions as well as for the hub operator would have sped things up.
And I think now that's good points, Drew. I think there's been a lot of advances since there with the testing toolkit, the sandbox lab that the Mojaloop Foundation has set up with Apex in Singapore. Hopefully, I think a lot of those would have helped us. I think they're still in development, but I think it would have been nicer to be able to take advantage of those. But I'm glad we're at a better stage now. Nyi, I wanted to then, okay, you've now been working with Payment Manager and how that has probably eased some burdens, but also added a few more. Can you talk through the experience of onboarding and integration using Payment Manager?
Sure, Steve. Thank you. I'm sorry, I have background noise. Yeah, definitely. So when we talk about the onboarding by MFIs, right, we can look at the technical aspect of integrating between their cores and the core connector of the payment manager, right, to Mojaloop. The technical aspect of it, where we will primarily work with the technical teams or the vendors of the MFIs, to make that happen, right? But at the same time, now that we are getting closer and closer to having this platform live, and I think, I'm not sure if this has been announced already, but I mean, we just saw the first many moved across this platform, right? For the first time, right, today, through a wallet, a balance taken out, and being marked as a account repaid in a core banking system of AMFI, right? So that happened today, right? So when we are talking about the onboarding or the MFIs, right, there's also another type of integrations where we need to also look at the integrations between the operations team of the MFIs and the hub, and with the settlement operations in the settlement bank. That is also another onboarding and integration that we also need to consider, because it's as critical as the technical piece, right? So what I see is that I see three levels or three stages of integration or engagement with these organizations. So the first stage is where the champion of that organization, right, may decide. It's usually a top-down, kind of decision that, yes, I'm we are committed to this vision. We want to be part of this, and the conversation, right, happen. And there's a walk in that, and at some point, the organizations become a part of the lab phase, to start testing the integration, etc. But very soon after that, or in parallel, there is an operations team, right, who is interested in the pricing, right? Does it make sense? What is the ROI? And if they want to go to that next stage, usually they require board's approval. They require a lot more thorough understanding of the commercial model. These MFIs, I'm using MFIs mainly because that's the use case that we are currently focusing on. They are very socially driven, but at the end of the day, they are commercial organizations. They also have to, have a commercial interest in participating. Right? They could be. If they could be, having the same benefits, right, without having to pay for services or having to invest, I think they would, right? Let's all be, frank, right? This is all good principles, but they are joining because there's a commercial, benefit, interest, incentive for them to join. I think as a hub, we need to make sure that that incentive is very clear, and we need to always be presenting that and also, modifying, that, right? So right now, we have in Myanmar 17 MFIs who signed the letter of intent. That's 17 MFIs. We have 188 MFIs operating in Myanmar, but this 17 MFIs represent 2.3 million active borrowers, which is about 50% of the close to 50% of the borrowers in Myanmar. So that's a pretty good, sizable, interested MFIs who have signed the letter of intent, and we are slowly moving them right, through the funnel, right, to eventually, join the platform. So definitely, having a tool like Payment Manager helps in speeding up how they integrate. So far, all the organizations who are integrated with Mojaloop is opted for the Payment Manager, even though we are very clear that this is not the only option that they have. We have listed all the options that are available to them that they could choose. But so far the Payment Manager has been something that they decided to to go for, right? At least in this phase, and we're happy either way, and that speeds up the integration, and that's what we need to make sure that they can join as soon as they make a decision, that they can join as quickly as possible.
I think one of the things that I say that Jane had a comment, so I'm going to say one thing about Jane's comment, and then we're going to go back to the huge thing you just announced. So Jane asked, I'd love to hear about how the participants struggle to adapt to changes in the system and the impact on them. So kind of going to what Kadidia mentioned of if we make changes, then that rolls through. And I think the hope that we have with the fact that everyone's using Payment Manager is that that's going to allow us to roll out changes more efficiently and reduce the burden on them, because if possible, those changes can happen at the open source Payment Manager level rather than having to happen at their core level. And so, Jane, I hope that answers your question of what we're now, the fact that doesn't help all of their struggles, but I think that's what we're hoping for as the hub continues to evolve, hoping that Payment Manager makes it easier for them to evolve. But before we check that, Nyi just said out loud something that I think it's important to say again, and for everybody in the community to hear, because he glossed over very quickly. Nyi, what happened today?
So there's a big milestone that happened today in Myanmar, right? This is something that we have all been working towards, right? Which is the first transaction from a wallet, a user in a wallet, make a payment, right, to this scheme, represented by a name, right, on a wallet, and the money is detected from the wallet, passed through the Mojaloop technology infrastructure to the payment manager and to their core banking, and marked as a loan being repaid, right? So that first transaction happened today. So it's a huge milestone for us. There's been multiple different kinds of tests, right? Lab environment, the integrated testing, with one set of DFSPs, end-to-end testing with all the DFSPs involved, from their the QA environments to QA environments of the another DFSPs. But this is different, right? This is real money being transferred. So it's a huge step for us, and we are very happy with that, Steve.
I'm very happy for you. I'm very happy for everyone who was involved in it. That was a huge step today. I do see that she's on the call, so I would like to embarrass Tin by having everybody give a silent little round of applause to Tin for making that happen over the past couple of weeks. She is, not to minimize what you've done, me, and what PA has done, and the entire team, and Jane and everyone else, to make that FUT happen. I'm sorry, James, I could list names and going on, but I think everyone in that team would say, Tin, you really did something amazing and got everyone moving. So really congratulations and thank you for all your hard work over the past couple of weeks to do that. Sorry if I embarrassed you, Tin.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure it's not Tin or someone else. Thanks. Thank you. It's everybody's actually helping. It was just facilitating in between. We got a huge support from MBX and really the whole TW team for late nights and everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We're hoping that might be how we ended it, but I think we still have a few more minutes, and there's a couple of questions that I'd love to keep going on about. And it is around this idea that because, first thing I want to say is if we talked about these chicken and egg situations, and then we jumped into what I think everyone realizes is the biggest chicken and egg is you can't have a network without participants. You can't have participants without a network. And so we jumped really quickly into the struggle of getting participants on board. But if there are other people who can think of other chicken and egg situations that you'd like to share or ask about in the chat, please go ahead and post them now, and we'll address them in the last couple of minutes. Then we've also talked a lot about the iterative approach to this. And I think what I'd like to I think we all mentioned that is one way of doing it. But sometimes maybe you say, oh, I really wish I had done that one earlier. Like in my iterative process, I got out of line. And I wish this was something I would have taken care of earlier in my iterations. Kadidia, do you have any examples that come to mind of things that in your iterative process you think it would have been helpful to have said, no, we should have done that one earlier?
Yeah, sure. I don't know how far I can go into the details, but we had a situation where we had one account per FSP. And then when settling, we had configured the hub to just settle based on the FSP. But then when we decided to have more than one account per FSP, then we had to make changes to be able to settle based on different accounts and not just based on the FSP. So those type of situations did happen, but we were lucky enough that they did not involve a massive change or a breaking change. So yeah, it does happen sometimes, but this is something that we did not foresee. We did not see coming in the beginning, but that's okay. We haven't had any major issue or situations related to the fact that we didn't have all of our use cases from the beginning.
You're in a slightly different situation. We here in Myanmar, we have basically two startups. You have big stakeholders. Were there any challenges that you had getting them, like your two big stakeholders, or even a lot of the other stakeholders involved, to understand and believe in that iterative process?
Not really, but again, not in the past, but in the future, we've had to make some to make some choices based on use cases that were not yet supported by Mojaloop. We had to design it, to custom design it. So I'm sure that we'll get to a point where those use cases are supported by the hub, that we will face those type of situations where we have to decide whether we just keep doing it the way we've been doing it, or if we switch. And once we get to that point, how many participants will we have? Is it going to be too much to ask them to switch over? Or so these are not situations that we faced in the past, but we might going forward. Like the previous discussions were mentioning a lot of duplicative works and stuff, but right now we're working very closely, everyone together, the partners, the community, Mojaloop product people and stuff. So I think we might not have situations like that if we continue to work closely, and we work more efficiently that way. But it might happen in the future, but we haven't had any cases like that in the past, no.
I mean, that's an interesting one. The next question I was going to ask Ron was, has there been ways in which using Mojaloop as an open source tool has helped you be more iterative? And I think that will be interesting for your particular use case. Are there other examples that besides that one piece of tech that you were talking about earlier in our conversation, were there other examples that you feel like using something that was open source rather than proprietary helped you be iterative in your processes?
Not really. I guess we don't have enough. No, not really. Not really.
I mean, unfortunately, that question is difficult to ask the first one because there is no. Those of us who worked on the Myanmar project, we're lucky enough to learn from your iterations. And like you said, hopefully, as we grow, more users will start adapting things. Drew, did you have a comment you want to make on that?
Yeah, I think one thing that I noticed in the Myanmar project is that the iterative nature and the spirit of Mojaloop influenced the business processes to be more iterative, actually. Because business processes by default aren't that way. Sometimes they're very structured. We're going to make this decision, everyone's going to sign off, and that's going to be it. And I think that it wasn't a conscious decision, but I think that filtered over into some of the decisions that we made around pricing or other rules or even brand. And we really imbued the project with a sense of this is a for now decision, not a forever decision on the business side. And with the foundation of having a process to make decisions, using that structure that was mentioned earlier about having the MFI sign the letter of intent and having some sort of governance around it. I think, subconsciously, as you were asking the question, I thought of how Mojaloop actually influenced the business.
That's an interesting point. I like the way you said it. This is a for now decision rather than a forever decision, especially on things like pricing and some of the rules. And to Kadidia's point of, and I think we had a similar one with around settlement as well. Anyone have any idea what version of settlement MMD and wine are now? I think version 210. Paul Macon can probably tell us what version he's up to, because every time a new participant has a new problem, the rules around settlement have to change.
Since Paul is not here, I can say it's version 16.
Yeah. Are you joking? Is it actually version 16?
Yes. I was just saying the other day to the team that I sneezed and there was a new version. Yeah. No, but I think it's a sign of like how iterative the process is, and also there's a very strong documentation team to capture these changes, requirements in a timely manner, and I think that's going to be very, very helpful. And Drew mentioned about the letter of intent. You asked about the experience to those hub operators and others who are thinking of starting similar schemes. I would really recommend that kind of template that we found very useful in Myanmar that could be applicable in other areas too, right? Definitely want to make it easier for the DFSPs to make a decision to join, making the barrier to entry quite low at the beginning, so that they have a sense of understanding of what this platform is about, the philosophy behind it, be a part of the discussions, and move forward together. Right? I think that's the key message around it. But Steve, if I may, I think one thing that we notice, right? We all notice in Myanmar is that even among the MFIs, right, who are supposed to have a very similar business model from one to the other, right? We see such a huge difference, right, between their operations and also at the end of the day, right, their commercial model is also very different, right? So one thing that I think we need to consider very seriously from the hub is to provide as much flexibility as possible so that they can run their business the way they want to, right? So we are not here to enforce and dictate, right, the kind of businesses, the kind of models that they have to run, but to facilitate whatever business model that they have in amplifying that. I think that's the key message that I'm learning, and that we are trying wherever possible to apply that.
Unfortunately, we have to wrap this up, but I could see from Kadidia asking, I imagine there's a similar thing of, yes, theoretically, you'd think all MNFIs, you would probably think all opcos within the same company are the same. And we all Definitely. Know that's not true.
No, not at all.
And I would like to, that point about we have to be flexible, but we have to have standards. And so this idea within of this debate that we always have of how flexible are we going to be, and I can say when the Myanmar team finds the answer for that, then please tell us. But watching the Slack channels, I absolutely know that you have not found the answer for that, because I watch you guys argue about it every single day, of somebody defending standards and somebody defending flexibility. And You all know who you are. So anyway, with that, thanks for leaving us with that, Nyi. I appreciate it. Thank you, Kadidia, for joining us. Thanks, Drew, for your insights on how this whole thing got started. And once again, congratulations to Thin and the entire WinePay team for today's big announcement.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Thanks so much, Steve, and team. Excellent panel. That marks the end of our day and the end of our convening. But don't hop off just yet. I'll pass it back to Paula Hunter, the executive director, to wrap it up for us. Paula.
Yes. First of all, I want to thank all the speakers that participated this week. It's been great to hear your perspectives on what's happening with the Mojaloop platform. And it was great to shift off the technology quite a bit and talk more about the business challenges and opportunities for Mojaloop. Hopefully you can see my wrap-up slide. We've shared a lot of information this week. I think you've seen the link for the new business directory. Glad to see some of you who have joined already have submitted your profiles into the business directory. As mentioned earlier today, we launched a new white paper that I hope you will find useful not only for yourself, but your potential customers. There's a survey that has just gone live, a survey for this week's events. It's also in the chat, but we hope that you'll will be able to fill that out and give us some feedback. And also, please join our Slack channels and engage with the community. We don't want the conversation to stop now. We want to continue to discuss with you the evolution of Mojaloop and want to also celebrate your successes. In the next day, you'll receive an email with pointers to the presentations and videos, recordings of these sessions. So we hope you can share those. And if you need to revisit some of the sessions, they'll all be available and at your disposal. So with that, also want to thank the Mojaloop team and all our members for supporting this conference, and hope to see you again soon. Thanks all.